Hello everyone and welcome to Following Swift. In this second episode, we're gonna take a look at SE0196, Compiler Diagnostic Directive, or adding warning and error to the Swift language. These two compiler directives are gonna be working like the Objective-C ones or the ones in other languages. What we now have available is the warning directive, where we can write a static string. So this can't be an interpolated string, it has to be static known at compile time, and as you can see, we see a warning output by Xcode. This comes to replace the now kind of custom. This comes to replace the system where a comment starting by to do or by a fixme gets reported by some IDEs, but the important distinction is that these warnings are understood by the compiler, not only by the IDE, which means that when you are compiling, you are going to see it in the logs. In this case, in the Xcode logs, or if you run the compilation through the terminal, you are still going to see the logs with this warning there, as opposed to having to do or fixme especially handled on every IDE. The warning directive can be really useful to indicate to other programmers that there are parts missing on the implementation. This is, for example, when you have some framework, and usually these frameworks have a secret key that you need to put, so when it contacts with their own server, it knows which customer you are. So in these cases, usually it's like they put your key here, please, or it's not gonna work. Okay, so in these cases, instead of now doing this, you can just put a warning and make sure to give a proper message. And now, the first time that your user compiles your framework is going to see this warning, making sure that it knows that it needs to give a key. Furthermore, for this use case, I will even go as far as saying, yeah, but without this key, my framework won't work. So it's not just a compiler warning, but it's a compiler error. The difference between the warning and the error, it's kind of obvious. The error will stop the compilation. Instead, the warning just lets the compilation continue. And in this case, if we compile this, we see that we have an error, we see build failed. It's pretty clear that if you want to use this framework, you need to put the key here and remove the error. And once you do that, then it compiles as usual. The error directive, it's also useful for other cases. For example, for platform-dependent code. Imagine that you had some piece of code that only worked, that basically was not supported on iOS. So thanks to the Swift platform checks, we could write something like this. I'm running in Xcode in a Mac, so I cannot compile because Mac is not supported. But for example, if we said, no, it's the opposite, it's only supported on Mac, obviously I will need to change the message, but now you get the idea. Right now, it's compiling perfectly because I'm on a Mac. So imagine that if you run this code now on Linux, it's gonna say Linux not supported, for example. More interesting is, imagine you do like a framework with UI or something like that. Basically, you say it's only supported on UIKit. Of course, like if I'm making use of UI views or UI colors and all that stuff, if I now go and I try to compile for a Mac application, it's gonna say, nope, that's not gonna work. If I had this project set up for UIKit, then obviously it would work fine. That's everything that this proposal adds. In the original proposal, the idea was to use syntax more similar to C and Objective-C, where the message for the warning was given like this, with a space between the directive and the string. This, it's more in line with other languages, but for Swift, it's been decided that it makes more sense to align it with the other directives that we already have in the language. Like you can see here, the can import that obviously has a parenthesis. So this directive has a parenthesis, and I guess to make it nicer, we just remove the space. So that's the change they did on the review process. Apart from that, there are future directions, because during the discussions, some things were proposed for making it a little nicer. For example, there were some people that were suggesting to make that the warning can return a value, kind of like you can give it a function or some operation here, and that can get put in a variable. That was not accepted in the current proposal, just open for discussion in the future. A lot of people also wanted two more directives, the message directive and the info directive, which come from, I think the CLAN compiler supports that with special parameters that you pass at compile time, but they were also postponed for a future discussion because they don't affect directly the warning and error, and the warning and error, it's more clear that are needed in Swift. And probably the most interesting suggestion that I saw during the review process, the idea of extending the warning directive to support runtime issues. Basically by, for example, passing a parameter here that says at runtime, that will allow us to report specific errors or issues detected at runtime, not at compile time. So they show up on IDEs or some other kind of logs during only the development process. This is similar to what the thread sanitizer or the main thread checker in Xcode do, that they report the runtime warnings. But again, because this is a change that can be added in the future, it was decided to postpone this decision for later. I hope you like it, and now you know how to use errors and warnings in the next version of Swift. Please like and subscribe to get the upcoming following Swift evolution episodes, and thank you for watching.